Good morning. Namaste. The holy in me greets the holy in each of us and all of us. I honor that place of light and love within you, that place of truth and that place of peace. And as I honor that sacred place within you, and you honor that sacred place within me, we are one. One in faith, one in love, one in all that is holy. And so we gather. And welcome. Welcome as we gather on this National Affirming P.I.E Day. P.I.E, public, intentional, explicit. These are the standards to which we hold ourselves and one another accountable as we seek to make real our understanding and our practices of inclusion and welcome, as we seek to live justly, love tenderly, and walk in partnership with God and with one another and all of God's people. P.I.E Sunday. It's a day that coincides with P.I.E Day, P-I-E and P.I. P.I.E Day, a sacred day for mathematicians and scientists and Big Bang fans and Luke Young. It's your day, Luke. P.I.E, that ancient and infinite mathematical wonder and constant. P.I.E, that ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter that never changes. P.I.E, 3.141592654. Can anyone continue? I think it's down to the 70 billionth number. That is P.I.E. The third month, the 14th day. And when you know it, today is Albert Einstein's birthday, or would be Albert Einstein's birthday. P.I.E Day. And you're just working up to it because friends of Pictou United are also celebrating birthdays on this P.I.E Day. Jennifer Foss, Adrian Burrow, Sandy McCall. P.I.E Day, so let's come along for P.I.E Day. A day to celebrate love, that infinite, circle, wonderful, inclusive understanding of love. And we celebrate who we are as an inclusive, welcoming community of faith. Today we do celebrate, but we also acknowledge that we're on a journey. We're always learning and always growing in our understandings of gender identity and sexual diversity. Our own understandings and that of others. And so we do seek to create safer places and spaces for all. LGBTQIA2+. It's just not a growing list of representative letters, but it reminds us of the wide spectrum of the rainbow, the beauty of rainbow, that we are all part of it. And so we gather. As we gather this morning, I want to extend on your behalf a warm welcome to Vania MacMillan for being willing to be with us this morning. As you'll note a bit about Vania in our bulletin, Vania is the executive director, or as he says, meaning the one paid staff of the Pictou County Sexual Health Center. And so Vania will be sharing with us this morning as we mark P.I.E Day. Again, it is good to gather. I also want to extend on your behalf and my behalf a special thank you to Cecily Gilby. There's a mass throwing off with people. Whenever there's an idea or something special, and there's a song there, and I kind of Send a note off to Cecily. She's always willing to rise to the occasion and offer gifts of music. And I very much appreciate that. So thank you, Cecily. I do draw your attention to announcements in the bulletin and to take note of the various activities that are taking place in terms of meetings and activities. Also, on the yellow insert in your bulletin, again, information about guaranteed livable income and the movement that is taking place around that within the church and within other community groups. An advance notice around our upcoming exciting Easter fundraiser, again another online fundraiser organized by our Ways and Means Committee, and then just some advance notice around Holy Week and Easter gatherings so that we can get those onto our calendar. Are there any other announcements that need to be made as we gather in worship today? The time is now. A call to uncommon courage. It's a book by Sister Joan Chittister, a prophetic voice within the Roman Catholic tradition, within the American context, but like many prophetic voices, ripples go across borders and across denominations. And this Lent, a number of us have been gathering to ponder her book, The Time Is Now. It is a call, as she writes, to uncommon courage, to pick up the prophetic tradition that is at the heart of our faith and to live that tradition. She writes, we have a choice. The prophets had a choice. So do we. Faith is invalid unless you are living it. That is the basic message of the prophets, and it is as true today as it was thousands of years ago. Prophetic spirituality is an active spirituality that demands as much rock-hard commitment as it does heartfelt concern. We do have a choice each and every moment, each and every day. And today we have chosen to be here, to be present. And so we gather. Beloved of God, come on a journey. We come as we are, worshiper and warrior, fearful and faith-filled, safely distanced and deeply connected. Beloved of God, come on a journey. We come as we are, anxious and awe-filled, being and becoming, broken and beautiful. Beloved of God, come on a journey and be reminded again and again that we are holy, that we are holy. We gather on this high day and National Affirming Sunday. We gather with hope and joy. We gather with compassion and commitment. We gather with openness and respect. We gather with uncertainty and fear. We gather seeking wisdom We gather a rainbow, diverse in our gender identities and sexual orientations, LGBTQIA+, and two-spirited people. We gather a rainbow, connected by God's all-inclusive love, LGBTQIA+, and two-spirited people. We gather, growing and beautiful. We gather, whole and holy. We gather. Faith is invalid unless you are living it. Those words of Joan Chittister are words that she shares very early in her book. But those are words that have come back to again and again over this season of Lent. Faith is invalid unless you are living it. Faith is the work of love and justice and peace and equality and kindness and compassion. Faith affirms that we are one. One as people of faith and people of varieties of spiritual pathways and traditions. One of the pieces that lies at the heart of our faith and lies at the heart of many spiritual traditions and world religions and spiritual pathways is something we refer to as the Golden Rule. To do unto others as it's put biblically. It's also written in this way. All things are our relatives. What we do to everything, we do to ourselves. All is really one. This Lent, as we be invited to embrace God's holy love at work in us and through us, we're also invited to remember the oneness we share with one another, with all people, and indeed all creation. And so today we turn to another version of the Lord's Prayer, or the prayer of Jesus, that comes out of the Unitarian Universalist tradition. I invite you to join with me in this prayer of oneness. Indwelling God, infused throughout all existence, we hallow and honor you with many names. Your kingdom is within the human heart. We accept life for all that it can be, on earth as throughout all creation. May we continue to draw sustenance from this earth, and may we receive forgiveness equal to our own. May we ever move from separation toward union, to live in grace with love in our hearts forever and ever. Holy, holy, holy. That was the theme I invited us to embrace this Lenten journey. Embracing the holy love that is within us. Embracing that understanding that we are loved and we are whole, loved as we are for who we are. And I'm called to share that in the world. And one way we've been doing it is through kindness calendar. 40 days of being kind. And today we turn the page, so to speak, as our kindness calendar moves to the back page. How are people doing at being kind? Pretty good? Pretty good? Anybody do a nice thing for a friend this week? Some nice things happening? I kind of, when I came to this one, it struck me on many levels. Clean up a mess you didn't make. Every year. And I began to think there's lots of messes I make that are not just, dirty counters. Some messes are harder to clean up than others. Anybody tell a funny joke this week? I heard not everyone appreciated the joke I posted on Facebook. They didn't kind of find it that funny. Did anyone read it? Anyone remember it? If Jesus' mother was Mary, and Jesus is called the Lamb of God, does that mean that Mary had a little lamb? I liked it. You people are kind. Be kind. Today, pretty challenging today. Is anyone ready yet? God loves you. Tell someone you love them. It's a good thing for Pi Sunday, because there are many people, some of us here, some of us not, some of us watching, don't always feel loved. Or feel that if we are to be the true person that we are, if we are to be whole, if people will find out about our wholeness of what it means to be whole, that will no longer be loved. And so Pi Day is a day for us to celebrate who we are in the wide variety of what that means in terms of sexual orientations and gender identities, to celebrate who we are and who one another is and who people are. So all of us know that affirming, inclusive love. Love God, love yourself, love others. You do make a difference. We have some backup signers, what do we call them, Donna? Skinnamarink Dink is a song that not always a song you sing in church, but it seems to be a good song to move us through Lent and acts of kindness. And Donna has increased her group. Oh, you got a year older. You need more help. Well, thank you. This morning, as we gather on P.I.E. Sunday, we ponder the work of justice. For our workings on justice, our ministry as it relates to justice work, is connected to the work for justice regarding sexual and gender issues. It is just one part of our ongoing ministry. Justice is about poverty. It is about seeking to address food insecurity. It is about refugee resettlement. It is about a ministry of compassion and care and hospitality. It is about living our faith and the embodiment of that faith and spirituality. The work of justice has been and will always be risky work. Yet though many might criticize, though many might project their fears upon us, the work of justice is faithful work, holy work, so to speak. Have you ever been criticized or perhaps felt judged because you are a part of Pictou United Church, or perhaps the United Church of Canada? Does that mean anyone's experience here? Anyone remember the 1980s? Do you remember the work that the church was doing around ministry and sexual orientation, about whether or not, at that point, the term was whether gay, lesbian people were eligible to become ministers within the United Church. Anybody remember feeling judged, criticized for the work the United Church was doing? Think about the 1990s. The United Church begins to urge the government to amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to include sexual orientation as a prohibited ground for discrimination. Again, headlines slamming the United Church of Canada for being involved in politics, for making political statements. We move into the 2000s and onward, and our work in relation to same-sex partnerships and marriage. Again, the United Church is criticized. Individual congregations are criticized for stands taken around same-sex partnerships and marriage. Ongoing into the 2000s, ongoing work about celebrating gender diversity and identity and creating safer spaces and places. Have you ever been asked, because I have, are you part of that gay church? You part of that gay church? Absolutely I am. We are gladly gay. We are gladly inclusive. We are gladly willing to cherish and honor and celebrate the dignity and joy of each and every person. Yeah, I'm part of that gay church. We celebrate with a song of praise. In hope, in longing, we're glad to come together. In trust, in community, we're glad to come together. In many moods, in many shapes and sizes, we're glad to come together. In peace, in joy, we're glad to come together. In solidarity with those who struggle, we're glad to come together. In resistance to those who dominate, we're glad to come together. In memory of Jesus who lived with compassion, we're glad to come together. Remind us, God of wisdom, that life is worth living. Remind us that the struggle for justice is worth undertaking. Remind us that love and action are one. May it be so. The biblical story, the gospel story which we turned to this morning, is one that we often hear in the season of Lent, but it's often during those days of Holy Week. It's a story that's told by all four of the gospel writers, though it is told by each of them differently. It's a story of a woman. By a couple of the gospel writers, she's given a name. By John, she is nameless. It's a story of outpouring. It's a story of love. Here, the gospel writer places this story upon Mary, the sister of Martha and Lazarus. And it's a story of how the sweet smell of kindness, compassion, embrace, and love removes fear. A fear that was surrounding Jesus and his followers. In this prophetic act and in the gospel writer's powerful retelling, Mary pours out all that she has and all that she is. Jesus, the one who lived life to the fullness, is embraced in the fullness of her lavish love and compassion. Indeed, Mary's extravagant love disturbed those who gathered that day, and perhaps it still disturbs us. But why? Is it not right that love should be offered and received and valued and honored as gift? Reading from John's Gospel, chapter 12, beginning at verse 1. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. There they gave a dinner for him. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those at the table with Jesus. It was then Mary took a pound of costly perfume, made of pure nard, and she anointed Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with fragrance. Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, the one who was about to betray him, said, Why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor? He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And he kept the common purse and used to steal what was put in it. Jesus turned and said, Leave her alone. She brought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. You have the poor always with you, but you do not always have me.
I want to thank Mary Beth for inviting me here today. And I'm just going to take a second. I don't know if this is appropriate to take a photo in church, but my mom, who knows that I speak at various places and for various groups, well, I think she's going to want proof of this one. I used to come to church with my mom. That was a very, very long time ago. I love what you've done in the place. But I shouldn't joke because God is listening. He is always listening. I went to St. John's Academy in Glasgow. I went to Sunday school. I made my first communion. I remember having to go to confession and sweating like crazy because I couldn't think of anything that I did wrong that week. So yeah, I would go in and I would lie to the priests. Yes, I lied to the priests. I would just make up something that wouldn't give me too many Hail Marys. And then the next week, I could go and confess to lying the week before, so it all worked out pretty well. And then I got older, and confession became much more difficult. Much more difficult. Now I may actually have things that I need to confess. But I couldn't confess to thinking that girls were pretty because of the feeling that I wouldn't be forgiven. Lying was a single action. Stealing was a single forgivable act. Even killing seemed like it was forgivable. But being attracted to the altar boys and the girls in the choir, well, I didn't know. It seemed like God would forgive things that we did, but would He forgive who I am? And He's always listening, right? So even if I didn't confess, God knew. So I hated church. And my experiences were nothing compared to what others have experienced. And it wasn't until adulthood, and I mean far into adulthood, that I realized that this wasn't something that needed to be forgiven. God made me this way, right? And God doesn't make mistakes. My feelings were absolutely natural. And that is the feeling that everyone needs to feel. That I am perfect the way I am. I am natural. I am the way I'm supposed to be because this is the way God made me. Now, is it pie in the sky to be able to make everybody feel that way? Like they're natural, like they belong. People who have been told by the media, by books, by movies, by advertising, by society, by their family, by their teachers, by their own communities, whether that's church or another group, that they're told that they're not perfect, that they're not natural. So is it just pie in the sky, or is it really possible to make everyone feel welcome? Well, yeah, it is. Certainly is. Of course, there will be people who may never feel truly in place at a church, but we can't let that be because of their gender, their orientation, their expression, their identity, their race, their size, their abilities. Mary Beth has made me feel very welcome here today, and everyone else that greeted me as I came in and who I met. And how did she do that? Well, she called me, and she came to my office, and she was generally interested in what I had to say. She knew she could learn from me, and I could learn from her. She knows that she knows that who I am and what I have to say may be valuable to her and people she cares about. She talked with me. She surprised and impressed me when she knew the meaning of the word cisgender and other words that are associated with the rainbow. She knew about pride events that had happened in the past. She made me feel valid and free to be who I am in front of her. And I haven't felt that way in church in a very, very long time. So, how can we make everyone under the rainbow feel like that? The exact same way that Mary Beth made me feel. So there's no easy shortcut to inclusion and acceptance. There is no step-by-step guide on how to not be homophobic or transphobic. It's not a policy. It's a philosophy. It's a love. It's a belief that has to be as strong as any other belief or any other love that you feel. It has to be real. So, in no particular order, You can educate yourself. Learn the history of the LGBTQ2S movement and what its members have endured on the road to equality and acceptance. You can learn what some of the letters in the acronym LGBTQ2IS, IA, GPQ, and D, it's kind of like pi, the 3.14. There's a string of letters, right? String of letters because there are so many different identities and so many genders, and they all need to be accepted and believed. So even if you only learn the first 7 letters, right, that's a start. Because we are never ever too old or too smart to learn and understand. Colin Mockery is a famous Canadian comedian who shared how his 90-year-old Catholic mother loves and respects Colin's trans son. She also calls it the BLT community, so it's a learning curve. You can refrain from using homophobic and transphobic phrases that you may not even realize could hurt someone. Asking someone, did you have a surgery? Not really appropriate. Your beard looks so real, oh my gosh. My brother's friend's gay. Do you know him? You're trans? I'd never know to look at you. Oh my God, you look so good, you look so real. Now you might think that that's a compliment, and it is for some. It definitely is for some. But for most, it's just a reminder to them that what they look like on the outside is more important than who they are on the inside. Pronouns. Pronouns. He, she, him, her, they, and them. Use the pronouns that someone wants you to use, not the pronouns that you think they should be using. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes correcting yourself and others 1,000 times over. I am still practicing, I am still correcting myself when I slip up and call someone who is a he, a she, because they used to be she. But they've really always been he, but society is forcing to use she. Again, it takes a lot and it may be frustrating, but it means the absolute world to someone to respect their identity. You can buy your children and grandchildren or nieces and nephews, neighbors. You can buy them books that feature 2 dads and 2 moms, instead of that typical traditional mom-dad child. Right? You can buy them books that have 2 moms or 2 dads. You can let them play with whatever toys they want to play with. If Johnny wants to play with a doll, let him play with a doll. You can let them dress however they want to dress. If Johnny wants to wear a tutu to school, so what? Like, really? So what? You can let them date whoever they want to date. And you can believe that it is not just a phase. Have you ever been to a Pride event? There's a Pride week. There's a Pride month, of course, and then there's a Pride week held just about everywhere in Canada, and there's one right here in Pictou County. Have you been to an event? Can you even name some of the events that they hold? Or do we just assume that it's parades and drag queens all the time? Well, they have events on how to teach your children about orientation and gender. They have events on how to talk with your parents about orientation and gender. They have sports events. There's entertainment, arts and culture events that focus on our intersectionalities. There are panel discussions with a mosaic of guests that share a wide range of expertise and knowledge on whatever the topic may be. One year the topic was LGBTQ2S and religion. Very interesting. They have events where talk about ways to prevent sexual assault, because the statistics are devastatingly high in the rainbow community. We have sessions on suicide intervention, which is another disproportionately high statistic among the LGBTQ2S individuals. There are talks and initiatives on how to prevent youth homelessness, because young, gay, bi, and trans kids account for almost half of those numbers. There are events that have absolutely nothing to do with LGBTQ2S community at all. They are just merely there to provide a safe place for people to be, to exist, without judgment and without fear. And there's usually cake. So there, you can attend a Pride event. You can take a friend to a Pride event. You can support LGBTQ2S groups or organizations that support the community, like mine. Donations, invitations, promotions, and encouraging others to do the same. You can boycott or show your disapproval for any known anti-LGBTQ2 businesses or groups, whether they're local or not so local. Because if you embrace me one moment and then walk into that cafe that refuses to serve your trans friends or displays anti-LGBTQ2 posters, or not interested in removing the men's room, ladies' room signs on their single stall bathrooms to allow someone to have a safe place to pee, then you've lost my trust and I've lost my safety. You can stand up for their rights, because they aren't special additional rights that no one else has, just equal rights. Like the right to get married, to have children, to dress the way they want, and not be fired for who they are or for who they love. And when you stand up, do it in public. It's PI. Public, intentional, explicit. Do it in public. Do it in front of your friends. Do it in front of people who do not believe that we belong. Even when you know you will never change their mind, do it anyway. Because there may be somebody close by, someone who is trans, some young kid who is struggling with their identity, a young gay teenager who is afraid to tell anyone. You may not be able to change someone's mind, but you may be inadvertently changing someone's life. So do it so that others around you can hear you. Because God's always listening, and others may be too. Again, thank you for inviting me here. Thank you.
Namaste. The holy in me gives thanks for the holy in you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for the gift that you are. Thank you for the gifts that you are. I am blessed. The world is blessed. Our community is blessed when we allow the wholeness, the beauty, the brokenness, the fears, the hopes, the joys to shine. And as we live into who we are created to be, people created, born in the image of God. Namaste.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise God, all creatures high and low. Give thanks to God in love made known. Creator, Lord and Spirit one.
In reading this week and pondering Pi Sunday and National Affirming Sunday, one of the questions was being asked, why Pi Sunday? We're an open, inclusive, affirming community. At least that's what we say we are. Why? Why do we need to shout it out? Why do we need to be public? Why do we need to be intentional? Why do we need to be explicit? And this was one response which spoke to me. I hope it spoke to you. Still there are churches who are loud in their messages of hatred and condemnation. Still there are folks who join in marches and raise up placards saying, "You will rot in hell." Still there are others that pump out messages of rejection and judgment. And so we too we must be witnesses to God's radical love. Witnesses to God's radical love. That's what we are about, individually and in community. And so as we mark this Pi Day and move into the days and work ahead, we pause. And we pause to ponder what the work is that we will embrace. What are the commitments we'll make as we move from this place and into our day? Starhawk, who is a woman of Wiccan faith, offers these words. We are all longing to go home to some place we've never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community, Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us, and eyes will light up as we enter, and voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community needs strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. And so as we think about the work of P.I.E, the work of being public and intentional and explicit, I invite you to ponder what's in your P.I.E. What are those things that you will do to create safer places and safer communities? Does P.I.E need a little bit more kindness? Does your P.I.E include some more understanding? Does your P.I.E include education? Does your P.I.E include conversations? What does your P.I.E include as we seek in making our community and communities a safer and more inclusive spaces? What ingredients do we need to grow even more so? P.I.E for P.I.E. As we go from this place, you're invited to receive the gift of P.I.E. And on your P.I.E, you'll notice a little information card around P.I.E Day and how it might relate to us as a church community, as we be talking from time to time around looking at the official Affirming Ministries process of our United Church and what that might mean for us as a congregation in terms of giving a concrete action to the words we speak in terms of welcoming and hospitality and community and love and embrace and affirming. And so I invite you to receive the gift of P.I.E today as you leave. And if there's someone here who you'd like to share that gift of P.I.E with, then please share P.I.E on this P.I.E Day. And do read the card and the information there. And if you're interested in further gathering and further education and further information, then be in touch. And I'll ensure that we gather together to continue the work of P.I.E in this community and in our wider community. In the face of hurt and hate, we answer the call of kindness. In the face of exclusion and bigotry, we answer the call of inclusion. In the face of homophobia, we answer the call of P.I.E. Public, intentional, explicit. In the face of racism and xenophobia, we answer the call of justice and pluralism. In the face of intolerance, we answer the call of respect and diversity. In the face of despair, we answer the call of hope and faith. In the face of the challenges and opportunities of each day, we answer the call of love. Tender God, touch us. Be touched by us. Make us lovers of humanity, compassionate friends of all creation. Gracious God, hear us into speech, speak us into acting, and through us, recreate the world.
Thank you. Amen.